Welcome everyone to this webinar for today, this Friday afternoon, entitled The Neuroscience of Emotions. Thank you very much for being a part of this discussion. And on your screen, I hope you can see the screen. There's a question that we would like you to answer as we let people come in. And as we give about 5 minutes, just let everyone come in. You can go to mentimeter.com, either on your phone or on the computer. Once you get to mentimeter.com, it will ask you for a code, and the code that is there, 26, on your screen, on the screen. You can see it on our screen. Maybe Mary, you can confirm that you can see the code on the screen.
Yes, I can see the code.
Okay. So just put in that code there, and then it will prompt you with a question. One word to describe the emotion that you are feeling. What is one word that you can use to describe the emotion that you're feeling? Let me go on to mine and see if I can also get...
What do we put? Mentimeter.com, eh?
Mentimeter.com.
Then quiz.
It will ask you for a code. Enter the code. So 2643.
It's asking me to sign up.
No, above there, at the very top, before you roll down, at the very top, there's enter code.
Oh, yes.
So it should give you...
It says vote.
I can see guys coming in. Is that you? Uncertainty. It says, but do you see the words, one
Yes.
word to describe the feeling?
Yes. Yes.
I think I've voted. Anyone else who's put in, there's uncertainty. I put in happy. Ooh. Okay.
I've entered.
There's excited, there's worried, okay, there's overwhelmed. Let's see how many emotions you can get going.
Hence is mine. And worried.
Overwhelmed. Quite a number of people have voted overwhelmed. If you can see the big one there, overwhelmed. Is it because of work? Is it because of, what would make, maybe you can just put in at the chat box anything else that you'd like to say. Because I'm seeing overwhelmed, I'm seeing excited, thriving, energetic, worried, uncertainty, anxious, okay, excited. So I think we kind of have a mix of words here: excitement, expectant. I'm hoping expectant is for the webinar, but we still have overwhelmed being a big one. And I guess it is representative of, I guess, what the times currently are. Happy is also big now. Happy and anxious are the same as overwhelmed. So we have overwhelmed, anxious, and happy. Anything coming through on the chat box? As you let guys come in, we'll give them 1 minute more. Okay. So thank you, everyone. We shall just start this conversation on the neuroscience of emotions. We are very excited to share this topic with you. And with me today, let me stop sharing this. I think we've stopped receiving, let me stop sharing. So with me today I'm joined by two Genos emotional intelligence coaches and practitioners. And the first one is Miss Mary Mokindia. Mary Mokindia is a leadership executive coach, and she has a passion for mentoring women in executive positions to groom them, grow them, And she's also an emotional intelligence journalist practitioner. And we're very, very honored to have her here with us today. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you.
And then Zuhura, we call her Zu, Mama Zuhura. Zuhura is the managing director of Lindam all the way in Tanzania, another generous emotional intelligence practitioner and coach. She does a lot of team coaching, a lot of personal coaching, and she really has a passion for enabling young people to thrive and to find their purpose and to find their careers. And in fact, earlier on, we were talking about her love for deep diving into their lives to see what really shapes someone's perceptions and someone's views on life. So she's been in the Tanzanian market and East African market for some time now. And we are very, very honored to have her with us, join this discussion with us today. Welcome, Zuhura. And then, of course, there's myself, Vicky Karuga, who's going to be the moderator for this conversation. And I want to start this conversation with asking one question. What is the neuroscience of emotion? Zuhura. Are you muted?
I have unmuted myself. Good afternoon, East Africa. Thank you very much for joining us. And thank you, Vicky, for the introduction that you have done. It's a wonderful introduction. And this is the passion that I have of trying to assist young people, people who in their mid-career, people who are having trouble with their relationship and others, because all boils down to the neuroscience behind our emotions. And the question that Vic has put to me is like, what is the neuroscience behind the emotions that people feel and the behaviors that we see around us? And I want to take the audience through a very quick brain presentation and how our brains are wired. So at the time we are born, the first part of our brain, which actually is fully developed, it is thalamus. Thalamus is an area where starts to develop very well from the week 21 when the fetus is still in the mother's womb. The fetus is able to hear what is happening in the world around it, is able to hear tensions. If parents are having tensions, the fetus is able to feel it. And if the mother is maybe working in an organization which has toxic culture, the fetus is there. And this is where our memories are housed. And these memories are deep because they're housed at the time when we don't have a language to describe them. They're housed at the time when we have not really developed any linguistic ability to express those things. So we don't have words, but those memories are there. Now, psychologists say these memories are called absolutes. They form our worldview. We see everything through these kind of memories that we acquire. And this part of the brain is completely fully developed by the time we are born. The second part of the brain, which is developed at the age, starting from the age of 12 to 14, it is called a limbic system. And limbic system, without going too much into the biology, it is an area of our brain which houses our emotions. And these emotions are somehow triggered and they are shaped by either the society, they are shaped by the experience that we have, but also they are very deeply psychological related type of emotions. And this one is fully developed between the age of 12 and 15. And for people who are parents, you'll be able to relate with me at that age of 12 to 14, you find somehow your child starting to become withdrawn, wanting to stay in his or her own room, believing opinion of other people, not really using you as the point of reference. This is what is happening in the brain, and this is formed by the age of 14. Then this is a fully developed part of our brain. Then there is a third part of our brain which is formed at a later stage. Before the third part of the brain is formed, Close to the thalamus, we have what we call amygdala. Amygdala, these are pituitary glands, which actually situated both sides of our brains. And these ones have been put there as our danger detector. Some other people refer to them as our reptilian brain, which is actually able to sense threat and take action. And when it senses threat, either it takes action of freezing, fighting, or running away. And this one, it's so automatic. The process of amygdala, it's a split of second. And the decisions that we take, we don't even understand them because this is instinct. It is inbuilt in us and they happen so fast. So this is very close to our thalamus and it is related to our survival instinct. Now look at a small baby. I'm giving an example. A baby is born, still very small as an infant. A baby is able to feel gravity. When you are standing up with a small baby, when you are wrapping your arms around this baby, and maybe you shake a bit, the baby throws the arms in the air, like wanting to protect himself. That is the action of amygdala. And it is there to protect us, to make us survive. Then the last part, which is called neocortex, and some people refer to it as a prefrontal cortex, which is our very, very front part of our brain, and it is formed between the age, it is fully developed between the age of 18 and 25 for some people. Now this one, it is the thinking brain. It is the brain which is able to rationalize. It is a critical brain. It is a brain which asks questions. And when it is given an impulse from our emotional brain that this is a threat, it actually spends time to review it and try to understand what is happening. And it is also a part of our brain which actually gives us alternative. Now, if this is what is happening, I have a choice. Either I can act in a default mode, like our reptilian brain, or I can choose another way of dealing with this particular thing. So this is an area where when it is fully developed, you'll hear within some countries where people start voting when they're 18, or you sign contracts when you are 18 and above, or you can be held accountable at that particular age, because now you are thought that your brain is fully developed, you are a rational individual, and you can be accountable for your actions. Now, what happens when we are talking about the neuroscience of emotions? When something happens, and Mary will talk about it more. When something happens, immediately your brain senses that, your amygdala senses that this is a threat or a reward. Now, if it senses it's a threat, there is only 6 seconds for you either to refer it to the neocortex or to bypass it. When you bypass the neocortex, there is no rationality. You act from your default mode. And that's why we hear people who have committed murder. And the moment they have done that, they start regretting, because the processes happen so fast. You cannot control, and you don't know why they happen. You have what we call amygdala hijack. And people who act from amygdala hijack, they normally regret, because you cannot undo what you have done. And the moment that hijack has released you and you are no longer the hostage of your amygdala, then you start realizing, oh my God, what have I done? So we see a lot of things happening in the world. We see a lot of conflicts. We see a lot of some very bad things happening. It is because people bypass the neocortex, the rational brain. They don't have those, they don't take the opportunity of the 6 seconds that you have. And that's why in many languages, you have count up to, or count from 30 to 1 before you take any action. Thank you very much. That's what I can explain about the sense of.
Okay. Actually, as you were talking about it, I kind of thought that then when you react from the amygdala, when you react from the threat, and someone else is looking at you from the other side using the logical, the thinking brain, that's when they can see from outside the disconnect, even if they themselves cannot understand why you're reacting so, because their thinking brain is very logical, as opposed to the amygdala itself, which is telling you fight or fly. So Mary, now just talking more onto the neuroscience of emotions, and how then do we begin to see and understand what is actually happening as well in terms of even the hormones being released into our system?
Not one of my strongest points. So I love when Zuhura, kind of starts and explains it so well. But really what is happening is that we have a stimuli, and like she says, you have all these different areas of the brain. And I remember seeing something that was saying, like, imagine this fist is a brain. So you have that original one, well, the second one, the amygdala, which is a reptile brain here. And then when you open the fist, you have the emotional brain here that allows us now to be, human, that allows us to nurture, to have love, because animals with this, kind of reptile brains don't have that kind of reaction. They lay eggs and they go away. They have a new kid, they go away. But Africa, because of emotional brain, we can nurture our young. And then this fist here, if you close the brain, this would be the thinking part. So what happens when there's a stimuli, we will feel it here. It will come to this emotional, it will come straight to us to then decide which way am I going. And in a sense, even this primary is not always negative. I mean, people who have been told they can leap over a fence of, 7 feet because that primeval, kind of instinct came in. But what happens is that the emotional brain, you release, when there's a stimuli, you release two chemicals. If you perceive a reward, then you will release oxytocin, which is a trust hormones, and you feel good, you will expand, you will engage when people like you and say how lovely you look, Mary, today, or what a wonderful piece of work you've done. You feel very connected and you're open, and you actually start being creative. And this is what happens when people start to engage employees, to engage people. When a child is held by the mother, the first oxytocin comes when a child is hugged, the first hugs, and it enjoys, the child loves it. It's a very nice feeling. So your brain expands and everything about you feel engaged. But when you sense that danger that that Zuhura was talking about, there's a danger, there's a threat. What happens, you release a chemical, a hormone called cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And what happens? It tells you shut down. You become disengaged, you become closed, you become evasive, and then obviously you're making your decisions from that level, and it's either fight or flight mode. The decisions that they're making is fight or flight, whilst at the other ones, the feelings and what you're getting. So understanding that science, then your kind of thinking is, how then, when I relate with people, what is it that I'm getting them to release? Because you're coming in at a high level, stressing people as a boss, striding into the office. What do you do? And what do you release, and what message do they hear? Because honestly, there are only two. The brain gets a stimuli, everybody, you, me, everybody in the world. People talk about, oh, I'm very rational, there are all these facts. The first thing we do always, as even Zuhura said, is that stimuli, flight, threat or reward. And that's where we react from. The point is then, what do we react to that? What time do we allow ourselves to move on? That's what I would say,
Okay, thank you for that. And now looking back at the science of emotions and what we have, I mean, now starting to understand that on a very scientific level, there are things that intrinsically in us that cause us to react the way that we react. When we think about it that way, what are some of the things we can say in our normal day-to-day work or day-to-day relationships? Where do we see this play out without us even being aware that we are reacting to that reptilian brain, to that amygdala that keeps informing the things that we do on a day-to-day basis? Mary?
I think first of all, just because we're human beings and we are animals as well, and you sit in the animal kingdom, everything is about status. It always starts with us. It's us, me, my family, outside. So it's always about me and my status. And how do I see my status in relation to everybody else? Everywhere you go, even within your family, everybody's got, I'm the oldest child, I'm the middle child, I'm the last child. You go to an office, everybody has got a sense of status, who they are in relation to others. And that's how we find our place in the society, in the team, in the organizations. That's why you find people find titles very important. I'm called sales manager, not sales coordinator. And people get very grumpy about their titles because it gives you your status, your place. Because we're communal beings, you understand that I am not a stepsister, me, I'm a genuine sister, and those kind of things. So when you feel threatened about your status, that, I mean, if somebody plays around with your status and where you are and makes you feel unimportant or not important, those things make us react. So if I'm in a meeting in a boardroom and somebody starts to look like they're undermining me, or what I say is not listened, you know what they say, mansplaining, or even as a CEO, the chairman talks over people and you're not allowed to talk in front of your juniors, you feel threatened. This is my status. Why is it treating me like that? And those are the issues you find that, you know, they play out sometimes without people being aware, and they're affecting our reptile brain. So I'll react. You make me feel small. You make me feel threatened. Or maybe sometimes it's to do with, certainty. Everybody likes the ability to predict. We know what we're doing, where we're coming. And then the whole thing, oh, our company is being taken over, it's been bought out, or there's COVID. Then suddenly you have no control. There's no certainty. Are you going to be there? You hear there's going to be rationalizations. We are going to reduce numbers of people. Suddenly you feel, wow, I don't know if I'll have a job tomorrow. And those things make us react and make us behave in a totally different way. Yeah.
So you're feeling threatened, so you're definitely in a place of threat. It could be, as you said, someone putting you down, or even maybe not even putting you down, you perceiving yourself to be as that less important or something. So just generally feeling uncomfortable about the way things. And I think human beings,
or things are done, you're not copied on the email, or people are meeting, it's your area, they made decisions. So, you know, I'm not in the play anymore. My opinion doesn't matter. Surely this thing was passed. How was it passed? Or when you have absolutely no kind of certainty of what's going to happen on projects. So, yeah.
And even relationships, I think. Zuhura, what would you say? Even in terms of relationships, I mean, when you're thrown into a place, you don't know anyone there. I mean, surely that must have an effect on how my amygdala, I think, the reptilian brain reacts. Yeah.
Exactly. And all of us, we have that. All of us, we have that. Because when you go to a new job, or you join a new board, or you go to a new place, you are completely disoriented.
Yeah.
You have all these fears in you. Am I going to be accepted? Am I going to be part of this particular group? And if somebody is not making some kind of effort to reach you out, you are completely feeling like, I'm alone. And remember what Mary has talked about. We are mammals. We are always looking for a relationship. We are always looking for bonding. We are always looking for warmth. And the moment that is extended to you, you start feeling a sense of less stressed, because now you feel I'm part of this particular group and you feel okay. And that has a lot to do with perception of trust, because trust does not have language. A person can believe, can see whether I'm trusted or I'm not trusted. The last part of it is when you see that you are not being handled fairly. Fairness is very important when it comes to how our brain reacts. And fairness, it is relative. And this research have been done on monkeys. Like one research was done for 6 days, 2 monkeys. One, they were being fed a banana every morning. So a researcher will go feed monkey A a banana, monkey B a banana. On the 7th day, a researcher went, he fed monkey A grapes, very good bunch of grapes. And monkey B, the same banana he was getting 6 days ago. It was a hell. The hell broke loose. because the monk which was fed banana felt, I'm not treated fairly. So the cage was almost breaking because he's looking at the other monkey A, say, why is he fed something which is better than I? Now at one place, the same thing happens. Because if I come today and I reward you with $50 and I give Mary $50, you're okay because you feel this is a fair exchange. But then I come another day, you are in the same status. I give Mary $100 and I give you $50. I give you $70.
Yeah.
Of course, you will react badly. It is a threat to you because 70 is larger amount than the $50.
Yeah, I'll feel
about $20 more. But because Mary has taken $100 already, the threat mode is activated.
Yeah.
So it is very important to understand these elements, which actually create a bad reaction to a certain stimulus and a good reaction to a certain stimulus. And for leaders, it's very important to understand that people want a relation. They don't want to be led by robots.
Yeah.
People want certainty to know what is happening. People also want to know that they are treated fairly and their status is not undermined on continuous basis.
I remember when I was in Form 1, those you know, when you enter Form 1, first you don't know anyone, then you have been labeled, in our days, it used to be called monos, so your status has been undermined totally because you're almost useless. Then on top of that, the older girls would eat the nice food, so you feel unfairly treated. I think we used to crowd the booth and call every single day, I want to go home, I want to go home, because that constant, without being aware of it, now that I can look back objectively, I guess I must have felt so bad. I mean, can you imagine all those things? Huh?
And Zuhura actually reminds me also, you know, many of the boards that I'm on, and I've been for a long time, for some reason, I always end up being chairman of the HR remuneration committee and audit committee. And even now I'm on the boards that I'm actually HR committee chair. And one of the core issues is this issue of equal treatment and fairness in salary administration, reward systems, bonus, and they cause such problems. You end up with very negative culture, terrible culture, how was so-and-so promoted, and therefore getting all these, you know, kind of doing surveys, making sure their salary groupings, making sure their salary bands, making sure that the KPIs and all these things are clear, because those things create havoc. For me, I know one of the things that I really don't like, and I think it agitates my amygdala, which I hear is called the smoke alarm of the brain, is things like autonomy. I really do value autonomy. And I know I had a job in an international organization. I will not say where, but if you look my CV, International Civil Service, I was micromanaged. And let me tell you, at the end, it was not like me. I left a very good job with a high international salary, but really I could not stand it. You know, it just stressed me. I guess now that I know is cortisol, I just could not function micromanaging. I felt I literally had no sense of control over things. So, you know, these are what we're talking about and understanding. Now I understand them. At that time, I was just angry all the time. I was an angry woman, black woman.
And that's actually...
they would have said you were in your menopause.
Yes. They add something else, because you know these things we're not aware of. You're not aware of why you're hating that job so much. It has everything you want, but that thing that you just like, you don't know why, but you really hate this job and you don't understand why. In the same way that we're talking about even fairness, and I think that culture, when you start favoring one person, can you imagine first, we won't even hate the leader, we hate the person who's being favored. So now we start another whole ring of, we're hating on their silos, their political allies.
In fact, the word used is silos. We call them silos. And you go to that organization, you have toxic culture, because those liked ones, they are called, those are the goody goodies. They are liked, they're favored, we're the bad ones. And literally, you know, it creates silos.
Yeah, from a very small thing. And it's such a human thing. if you look at it from the science of emotions. So you find that we're developing these small things that are impacting on this culture, that we are working so hard. We are hiring external advisors to come and tell us what values do you want, but the behaviors themselves are still causing the same issues over and over again. There is absolutely no way we're going to move from point A to point B if we don't address the root cause of that problem.
You're reminding me of a well-paying job I have. We're doing organizational development. We're trying to build a performance culture. We're trying to build trust, because there are no trusts. And those silos are just because of these things we are talking about. So in a sense, I have a job.
Okay.
A big consultant's job.
Yes. Okay. So Zuhura, we've seen a lot of research in neuroscience and a lot of scientific facts to back what I think social science has been saying for a while now. They've been talking about empathy. They've been talking about the art of negotiation, the art of communication, caring. And a lot of the times, I mean, people say that these are those things that, I mean, why do we need to really train on them? But from the discussion we're having, there's a very deep science towards it. So what do you think are the significant areas people can start to take notice of in terms of looking at it from a completely different angle that is based on this science?
Okay. Vicky, that's very interesting, because most people call these skills soft skills. But for some years now, I've stopped calling them soft skills, because these are very essential skills when you look from the social science perspective. And we are talking about how can people become more conscious, how people can approach the relationship and work alignment in a more conscious way. And some of the skills that maybe they are not taught in school sufficiently are skills like listening.
Yeah.
Because we all say we listen,
but
what kind of listening are we giving to the people who are talking to us? Here, the first step we need to take is to make sure that we listen with emotional posture. When we are talking about listening with emotional posture, is the ability to hear what is not said. Actually, you realize as human beings, what is not said is more important than what you hear. So the ability of a person to be able to understand what I'm hearing, there may be something which is deeper than that. And being able to spend some time to listen more carefully, and being able to confirm or to rephrase or to assist somebody to come out more clearly. So that one is missing. And for most leaders, because of the fast-paced environment in which we work, we don't listen that much. So I think that is one of the communication skills that we need to hone very well. And not only speaking, but that listening part of it is very important. But another thing which we really need to be able to do is to be able to read body language, because it tells you a lot of things. And the moment you are able to understand that people, they have a brain, and that brain is working 24/7, analyzing, trying to decode, trying to interpret and whatever. And that interpretation is visible. How the body is speaking to you. Then as a leader, you are able to really pick some cues and assist. Even if you have an underperformer, you can actually pick some cues. If you have a person who is very good in performing his job, a top flying person, you even know how to really assist this person to be even better and better through the way you listen to understand what this person cares about and is passionate about.
I was even, just as you're talking, I'm thinking about the way sometimes we're trying to talk to people and someone is on their phone, you know, you're talking to them and they're on their phone. You feel totally undervalued. You feel, you know, that's again so the same amygdala playing. And I've seen here Ali Kassam is talking about what is a stimulus. You trying to pass a point to someone and they're busy on their phone stimulates your amygdala immediately to start thinking, okay, fine, is what I'm saying not important? Is this person ignoring me? I mean, what the hell? So I'll either choose to withdraw, that is fly away, or I choose to be aggressive, especially if you're someone who's junior to me. I'm like, so what the hell do you think you're doing? Why are you ignoring me when I'm talking to you? Now, can you imagine the other person has to react back to me? And, or I can just look at you and say, you know what, by the way, it's never that serious. So again, going back to the science, I think you thinking about it that way, it's the deep listening is also because you realize some of the things that you do are also causing an impact on that person's, as we said, a smoke alarm. What did you call it, Mary?
Smoke alarm.
Smoke alarm of the brain. The smoke alarm of the brain.
The smoke alarm of the brain, yeah. I know my child, when I'm on the phone, just stops. He comes and puts his hand and says, Mom, I'm talking. Yeah, and what about Mary, when you talk about leadership as primarily influence, what are those things you are conscious of?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something that Zuhura said that I love being with Zuhura on these sessions, because she really, like she said, I don't like calling them soft skills, I call them essential skills, and I've put that down. Somebody better tweet it. But what Zuhura was saying about listening, just before I go on to leadership, because I think it's tied, is that I'm also a coach. I'm an ICF accredited coach. I'm actually ACC. And we have 11 competencies, so they've changed now to 8, but we have time until June next year. Is it June? Yeah, June next year. But the 5th competency, out of the 11 competencies, the 5th competency is what we call active listening. Yeah. And active listening, exactly what Zuhura was saying, is not just listening with your ears, is actually really listening and absorbing and looking into the person, what you're saying, not on the phone, the eyes, and listening more to the body language, what is not being said, as Zuhura exactly said, the tone of voice, the emotion. Sometimes they may say something and they're looking down, they start fidgeting. So you need to inquire, I saw your body, or I saw you droop, or I saw you da-da-da-da. I remember once I was being prepped for a job. Don't ask me why, but I wanted to be the head of one of these big parastatals, the anti-corruption. And I was prepped with a TV interview with everything, cameras, my friends who were prepping me. And they asked me a particular question, and they showed me on later, they told me life went out of you. You became confused. And I can't even tell you what the question was. The question was, you want to be the head of the anti-corruption, morality, and whatever, but how do you explain that you yourself were a second wife? And I just said, your ethics and whatever. Literally, I could not answer. I started bubbling. So, people's energy, everything you can sense. In a meeting, when everybody goes quiet, a meeting is being held and it's completely quiet. And it was a very active meeting. There's something going on suddenly, and you don't understand. So exactly. I saw this. And, sorry, go ahead. Yeah. I saw this Instagram today.
Yeah, Mary.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Mary have reminded me, when we are talking about these essential skills like communication, what they did to you, they disarmed you. Normally, that is a technique. And when you really want to get the core of the person, you disarm by distracting that person, taking the person out of the track. And it is used so much. And if you are not aware, and you don't have essential skills to handle that, you are completely derailed. And the moment you are derailed, you are not thinking. Your frontal cortex of the brain, which is rational, which is critical, stops completely. Now you go to the limbic system.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And that's what happened. And that's why the color in your face disappeared.
Yes.
And that's why you became a sinking ship.
And people use this as a tactic, Zuhura. You are so right. When you're in meetings, negotiations, or when they're interviewing people on TV, you're absolutely right. Yes.
Yeah, they use it as a tactic to derail you completely, because what they are doing, they are pushing you against the wall. Instead of you advancing your substance, your argument, substantive argument, they push you, against the wall. Now you start defensive. Your communication changes. Now you have a good message. You have a very good subject matter to talk about. But because you're being pushed, against the wall, now you are sidetracked. Now they trigger what we call the fears, and the anxiety in you. And you start perspiring. You start, sweaty. Your palms are now very sweaty. You cannot think straight.
Yes, because you
and
become
completely.
constricted.
Then
Yes,
you
because
are
yes,
not creative.
yeah, because when the amygdala kicks in, you become people cannot think
Yes,
creatively.
constricted. Yes, narrowed.
I see what you mean.
Exactly.
I see what you mean. And you know, there's this text I saw on Instagram from us, International Coaching Federation message board. And Zuhura reminded me of it for me to go to answer your question on leadership. This coach, El Cronin, who's a PCC coach, says, I see many executives wanting to inspire, but not many wanting to observe. I see many leaders wanting to lead, but not many wanting to listen.
Mm-hmm.
I see many people wanting to change others before truly changing themselves.
Yeah.
The only way to impact your company's culture is by modeling the change you want to see in you on your own path. So whatever, and then they go on about coaching. And the reason I picked this because of what Zuhura said and then what I wanted to say is that when I do the leadership training, particularly at the FKE Female Future Program, and we are teaching women who want to rise to senior positions because it's done in conjunction with the Norwegians, is leadership. One thing I've learned is that leadership is about influence, got nothing to do with competency. Yeah. Everybody assumes you've reached there, you've done that, been done. When you move now to a leadership role, which is a role, it's interchangeably, sometimes you're a manager, sometimes you're a leader, but when you're in that leadership role, it's about influencing people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because how do you bring everybody together and influence them towards whatever goal you're trying to achieve? Now, to be able to influence people, they need to trust you. And to trust you, you need to then be open, be yourself, be authentic, so they can say, so-and-so, he means what he says, he delivers. You've got to be able to inspire them and have that. So for me, what I say is that, and you know, research shows that there's a direct link between leaders, you know, kind of intelligence, that's what we're talking about, being able to be intelligent, being able to use your emotion intelligently, and employee engagement. Because if people, you're able to influence them, you're able to engage them.
Yeah.
And that requires these essential skills, no longer soft as Zuhura has said. How do you engage them? And they've got to be able to then know that you can influence them, because they're all about influence.
Yeah, yeah. I remember my early days in terms of my professional life, and because Zuhura was talking about negotiation. So coming from the background of architecture, where we had so many males, I mean, during that time, we graduated two females in a class of 20. And I remember very distinctly one of the lecturers telling me, this is not a male-dominated course. This is a male course. And my immediate reaction to that, which now I think in hindsight shouldn't have been that way, was to be very aggressive. I mean, because I'm this woman, I feel I have the right to be here. So I went head on, and it wasn't a pretty sight. We fought for a very long time. That definitely meant that my grades suffered. It definitely meant that my relationship with that man was never the same. I could never go to him for guidance. I could never go to him for anything. Just because I felt that, you know what, by the way, I'm also big. As Zuhura keeps saying, my ego checked in. My ego checked in. And that happens everywhere, even when you're starting out your career and you go to a place and you're feeling people don't really either value you or put you in the place where you should be, and you have so much to deliver, you might end up antagonizing the very people who are the ones who can support you through the things you need to learn, the places you need to go, people you need to know. Just because your amygdala kicks in, you go into threat mode, you're no longer creative as to how you can develop those relationships.
Yeah. And I think for me, as you were talking, what came to mind, and now I always get new aha moments. You know, when they say the carrot and stick, I'm actually starting to understand where the expression carrot and stick come from, because carrot is a reward. And when people are rewarded and they feel good, they get the, they get the oxytocin, they expand, they're creative, they feel good, and you're rewarding them. You're telling them authentically and honestly, you're looking good. So you are catering to people to build them up, to make them feel good, as opposed to the stick where you are, I mean, when I first started employment, I was a tough bitch, sorry to use the word, but I thought I was also very fair. I knew it was very fair, but I was also a tough leader. And I used to, you're saying good morning to me on the corridor. I said, Mary does not thaw out until after 9. Why are you greeting me 7:30 in the morning? I'm walking, or 7. Let me get to my office, sit down, relax. Those days I used to smoke my cigarette, coffee. Then after 9:30, you can walk in. But what was I showing? What was I showing up as? I was not building them. I was making them feel small because I'm so important. And I now really understand the carrot and stick, which one works, even as you're bringing children up. What makes children then start walking? The mother says, well done. Hey, nasi mama. Hey, wonderful. Baby. So I'm starting to actually see more of what Zuhura was talking about, that reward threat in some of these expressions that we think we know every day. They come from science.
Yes. Yeah. And Vicky, I just want to respond to one of our audience who has requested some kind of explanation, especially what I said in negotiation, or someone wants to disarm you from focusing on the substantive dialogue that you want to have. When you go and you have substantive thing to present, first of all, prepare yourself emotionally. Emotional stability is very important, especially if you are heading for a tough negotiation. Learn that people play tricks and people would like to have an upper hand in negotiation. And the only way to have an upper hand, that person will come with a very disgusting, outplaced argument, or even putting words into your mouth. And when you find people like litigation lawyers being trained, and when they are presenting their case, they are trained to be very stable, to stay on track, rather than agreeing to be swayed by what you are hearing, by the attacks that are thrown on your way. You still say, my line of argument is this. What you have said, it is a discussion for another day. Let's talk about what I want to tell you now. And then you continue with what you are presenting. Many people are able to handle disarmament. They are able to disarm such attack by really staying on the line and being able to advance their argument rather than falling into the danger track of going to defensive mode. So I'm trying to answer one of our audience.
That is such good advice, Zuhura. And, absolutely. And I've seen that exercise. The other thing I might comment that I've seen people do, particularly in the boardrooms, and they're kind of the chairman I admire. And sometimes I'm trying to do it slowly. I'm starting to get it, not a lot, is using humor, disarming that kind of person coming in with humor. Somebody can say something to annoy you and they're trying to bait you. You deflect it with humor. That's why you see a lot of boardrooms, a lot of meetings, and men particularly are very good at using humor to use things. What do you say, Zuhura?
Yes, I know. I joined one board and it was a regional board. And I remember being introduced and I was the only second female over 16 board members. And then we were just two of us, just filling the pink corner at that particular time. And each time I want to say something. And before I finished my sentence, there was this guy, older than me, believing he knows better what I want to say, always finishing my sentences. And when finishing my sentences, he will actually finish them in a way that somehow they'll throw you out of your track. But because of the knowledge of these essential skills, immediately I picked and I said, this guy already is undermining me. But at that time, I had already worked in Sudan and I had developed this kind of a thick skin. Then during tea time, I said, okay, I'm going to square out with this particular guy. So not in front of everybody, I just went and I say, Mr. So-and-so, I really appreciate your ability to finalize my sentences, but I just want to let you know that I'm an adult, I'm a professional, I know what I'm talking about, and if I start a sentence, I have capacity to finish it. That was the end of it.
I like the way you actually put it, that you had gone through it, you had learned, I mean, these were things that they just didn't come overnight. You went through them, you understood them, you encountered them over and over again. And I think from what I can hear you say is there was that awareness first. And then as you encountered several things in your life, it makes you better and better.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the quote that always tells us that you cannot control other things other than yourself. You can only control yourself. I can't control what Mary is going to say about me. I can't control what Zuhura is going to say about me. I can only control how I react to what they say about me. And one of the things when I was reading about just the science of emotions is also being able to anticipate. I'm going for an interview. What kind of emotions are likely to be elicited during this interview? And at that point, what kind of counters can I start practicing right now to be able to help me navigate through that interview to achieve the outcome that I want?
Absolutely. Yeah. And what you say, Vicky, is so true. And many of us don't understand, and even we're all learning, that everything has to be intentional. It has to be something you learn and always working at it. For example, going to interviews. Very few people practice for interviews.
Yeah.
Why don't you practice?
But also, very few people also try to learn the kind of panel they're going to face.
Yeah.
Very important when you are preparing for interview, especially for you to be able to manage your amygdala, you are not having that hijack. It's very important to know the kind of panel, who is a critical. Like you have watched this, what we call American Idol, and you have watched all these musical competitions, and you have these judges. Normally, out of the 4 judges, there is one who is very mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you find the moment you know the kind of panel you are going to face, also with clients, also with customers, when you are going to present a new product, try as much as possible to study the profile of the people you are going to talk to, because you'll have those people who will take their phone immediately when you start talking, and that is destructive.
Yeah.
They take the phone, they start reading their messages. Then you are presenting, you are very passionate about your product. And this person already has taken the phone, is trying to do something. And this is disarmament. They're trying to disarm you so that the price you are going to give them, they can now negotiate downward, because it's like, I'm not showing interest. And then there are those people, when you finish talking, then they change the body language. They seem to be very interested. Then they change the body language completely, showing like, oh my God, I wasted my time. So when you go into that negotiation, if you are not careful, you are not emotionally stable, you may fall into that particular trench. And then they have an upper, they have an upper hand over you, because now they have put you under pressure. And if you have really carved under that pressure, I tell you, you won't have any success in that particular negotiation. So the preparation is very important. Knowing the people who are in that particular audience, it's very important, because that's when you'll be able to make sure that you don't have amygdala hijack, which will make you completely irrational and not be able to really think straight.
Well said, well said.
Yeah, I remember one thing that Ben Palmer, the General CEO, said is that you should sometimes also take time to go and experience those difficult emotions that you don't experience enough of. Like going to speak to that one person who you find so difficult to have logical conversations with. Because, you're building your emotional muscle. And I think, God, even I myself find that really, really hard. But if you're going to go and you're going to go into an industry or an area that you're likely to encounter those difficult people, then I think you're doing yourself a service to really start understanding how you react, what you need to say on real-time basis. What are you going to do without having the theory around it, but actually doing it in terms of, okay, this is actually how I react, and this is how many seconds it took me to get annoyed That's what I'm thinking about as well in terms of.
No, and you know, it's such a good tool to have. And this is one of the things in leadership training, but even in those organizations are saying we're working with on development of trust, is that I notice, and I don't know, I think it's a Kenyan thing as well. Being a consensus society, communal, we don't like conflict. Many of us are conflict averse, including myself. You know, there are things I have my mother and I don't even tell her, and I'm thinking them and telling everybody. But in a professional organization, it's really required that you have that maturity and that kind of, you know, ability to sit with somebody and give feedback. And, you know, using I and talking to people, I did not like when this happened. I felt this way, and pointing out to people. But many of us prefer to keep quiet, or even asking for a salary rise, going and saying, I think I did well on this and this. I would like to see this. Many of us don't want to voice ourselves and be ourselves. And this is, I think, that what will give us that muscle that you're talking about, to be able to pick up things, mend a relationship, mend with a friend. I can think of two I've not mended and I need to, but just that hard talk, it is important. And all of us learn all the time, but they do help build. And I'm having some of those with my son and trying to say, actually, I've not been good here. I've not done this. I need to do this. And some of these problems are from me. It can be helpful, honestly, to grow us.
Yeah. Zuhura, what did you say?
Mary have mentioned, I just want to pick on what Mary just mentioned. And I think also the audience will be able to resonate with this. The only problem that we are having in terms of the neuroscience and how we express our emotions, the child in us never dies. And this is what adults should know. The child in us never dies. Because when a child is a small baby, an infant, normally they presume you understand what they want. And they don't put any words into what they want. So there is a yelling, crying, tantrums, and then the mother is figuring out, is it fever, or is it maybe the diaper is dirty, or maybe the baby is not well fed, maybe the gas is trapped somewhere. So the mother goes around, and then you solve the problem of this particular child. When we are adults, and even at workplaces, we sort of like assume people understand what we need. We don't come out and express our needs. Because we now go back to our limbic system. Because I'm feeling down, yeah? So Vicky must understand. Then we carry it as adults, even into our marriages. You know, it's like my anniversary, and I know the date is today. But you know, I really want to go dinner, candlelight dinner. But I'm assuming my husband understands what I want. Then I don't language it. I don't say, this is what I want. And when he doesn't invite me to the candlelight dinner, then I sulk, okay? And when I'm sulking, that is limbic, you know, system. I assume he understands that I'm sulking. And he'll bring red roses.
Yes, and if he doesn't, you get very, yes.
You understand? And you see that child in us who does not want to express the needs, wanting people to know this is what I need, does not die. So when we are talking about these essential skills, they are not only for workplace. Even within marriages, we encourage couples to have communication, to language what they are feeling, to validate the feeling of one another. And then you can have relationships which are stronger, the relationship which actually make you thrive and become a person who you want to be. I'll give you an example. All of us, we know Meghan Markle, married Prince Harry. Very brave woman. She was picking emotions in the corridors of Buckingham, picking emotions everywhere. The British, you know, crowd loved her. But the emotional cues she was picking from people who are close to the royal family were not right. And that's why she said, life is not only living, it is thriving. And I don't think I'm thriving. And she decided to take herself away from that environment. A very, very difficult decision. Many people, we go through life with so much social pain. And it's because we believe other people will pick our social pain, understand it, and solve our problem. We don't take ownership.
Yeah.
And the science of neuroscience, behind our emotions, there is a lot which is taking place. Remember that first part which is fully developed when we are born. It is driving our actions.
Yeah.
It is driving how we respond. It is sieving our worldview. And
Yeah.
if we don't acquire these essential skills,
Yeah.
then we are left at the mercy of people who maybe may abuse us, may also belittle us, make us look insignificant because we have allowed them.
Yeah. And what I hear is also that we also leave ourselves also to our own mercy, because
Yes.
you leave yourself to the mercy of your emotions. I mean, we just said that if you feel sulkiest, you'll not reach out to your husband, so you're not going to mend that relationship. So you leave yourself at the mercy of that emotion that is disengaging you. You're not even aware it's disengaging you. You're pulling more and more far away. And what results perhaps one day is an outburst, and then you're so unhappy in this marriage because you end up being a victim of that emotional process all the time. So
And and what happens when you're disengaged because you have gone back to primitive, you've gone back to that, the thinking brain is no longer engaged.
Exactly.
So when even somebody reaches out to you to help, you just say, leave me alone. Because you cannot even see help because you have completely shut down. You're no longer creative. You're not in an expansive state to be able to see that. So it has a lot of knock-on effects.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe sometimes there's someone who asked here, how would you, what are the recommended approaches to prepare oneself? I'm imagining from that response, like when you know that your amygdala is about to be hijacked, once you become that aware, what does that look like from your experiences, even as you've grown and learned over the years?
Okay, in our tradition, I think, even in our language, like if I look the Kiswahili in Tanzania, people say, haraka, haraka, haina baraka.
Yes.
Okay, we have it because even our forefathers, they knew the importance of engaging your prefrontal cortex in anything that you are doing.
Yeah.
The importance of cultivating that ability to count up to 10 before you take an action.
Yes.
And that's why we have even the sayings in our languages. Even if you go to Kikuyu, you go to Kichaga, to Kisukuma, to Kikamba, you'll find these very wise sayings that were there with our forefathers, our ancestors, because they know the damage that you cause by allowing amygdala hijack drive your life. And that is one way of doing it, of having ability to ask yourself, am I acting intentional here? Or am I reacting using my primitive brain? Am I a hostage of my amygdala? Or have I given my prefrontal cortex, my thinking brain, to process this thing? Can I see it in a different light? Because many people do not. And when we come to a workplace, we have what we call prejudging. You pass judgment.
Or bias,
Even before you are able to, you pass judgment before. I remember when I was practicing human resource, and I had an elderly MD from UK, and he came to Tanzania, and he had what we are referring to the experience that he came with. And he had some prejudices about Tanzanians in general. And one of the prejudices that he had, Muslims are not good people. All Tanzanians are thieves. There is a lot of infectious diseases in Africa. And all these are they're in his brain. The first thing that he did in the company, he asked us to build him a private toilet. And all his hand towels he'll bring from home because he doesn't believe they can be washed at the workplace. The second thing, he wanted me to carry keys for the entire company. Imagine from the switch where the telecoms nerve is to the stores, one person to carry those keys because he could not believe that people will not steal. And the third one, he called me to his office and he said, as we are now going to go to operations, because it was a project, we are building the network, he said, please make sure that you don't employ a Muslim. And I said, sir, you are speaking to one. And the color, you know, white people blush. He became as red as a tomato because Zuhura to him was not a name that connotes Muslims. So he's telling me, as a human resource head, please do not hire Muslims. Where is this coming from? It is coming from thalamus, the prejudices that were driven to his experience. And he used to see the worldview, you know, in a way that actually these are bad people, these are good people. So he had so many boxes where he will lock that one there, prejudge that person, and lock another person there. And I remember we did something out of marketing advice completely, launching a network during Ramadan. And this is because of his prejudice. We said, as local directors, we said, you cannot launch during Ramadan in Tanzania. He went ahead and he launched. And that costed him his job.
And somebody has said,
yeah, he was fired on any day.
Ken Sinara said something very nice. He says, you disarmed him.
But I'm a Muslim.
Yeah. So you see, when you have this preconceived, and what we are saying at workplaces, especially leaders, never approach any workforce with your own prejudices. This is killing. You'll never be able to make people feel they should follow you. You'll never be able to influence them because you have all these prejudices. You judge. This is happening because this employee is a woman. This is happening because this employee is coming from Nairobi.
Yeah.
This is happening because this employee is from Tanzania. You see, the moment you have those small boxes where you place people who you have prejudged, your leadership is completely kaput. You cannot lead.
Yeah. So Mary, now thinking about emotions, and I mean, we've talked about the science of emotions, and now going more into the subject of emotional intelligence. So one of the things that I encountered the other day was one of the trainings when one of the managers told me this thing called emotional intelligence is too much work. It's just too much work. For me, being able to walk in there, yell at people, tell them what to do, gets things done quicker and in a shorter time, and is more efficient than me pussyfooting around people and trying to get them to bring themselves to work. So, and what's your take on that? And what would you tell this manager who obviously wants to grow up the ranks as well?
Interesting, touchy-feely. We all used to think that. I used to be also a high-tech executive, and now I'm back in touchy-feeling because I think that's where what Zuhura said, essential skills are. Let me say something. World Economic Forum 2015, they listed that the 10 skills you need, any of us need, to thrive in the fourth industrial revolution in 2020, which is now the year has already come, and that's the first time emotional intelligence was really highlighted amongst the top. Many people knew and started to understand it's important. It's based on science of the brain, neuroscience, but that's the first time they listed it out. And they listed it out as number 6. They had complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, coordination with others. Then number 6 was emotional intelligence. And then they went on judgment and decision-making, service orientation, negotiation, and cognitive flexibility. But if you asked me, and in the 5 years since, actually, all these other things to me, once you do have emotional intelligence, because it's a foundation, all these other things come. Because what they have realized and what everybody's realizing, and it will be interesting to hear from your viewers about the companies they're working with. All of us, many organizations in the world now is moving towards artificial intelligence systems. And more the interaction, whether you're buying, you're selling, the interaction that organizations are having with clients and with people in the outside world is being undertaken by machines. Unbeknownst, very frequently, unbeknownst to all of us, we're interacting with machines. Even the Nairobi stock exchange, a lot of the bidding now when you're doing stock buying, all these big systems, New York Stock Exchange, and even the way prices move up and down, it's all done by machines, intelligent learning. They look at social media, what is happening, news reports. And therefore, it's becoming much more and more important that we differentiate ourselves on the basis of our humanity. We differentiate ourselves on our ability to be emotionally intelligent. So if you want to be an outstanding motivator, you want to be an outstanding manager, you want to be an outstanding negotiator, you want to be an outstanding listener, the human side, then and so that you will still have a part to play as technology is changing the industry and is becoming more and more prized in the decades. The skills that you need are skills like persuasion, what Zuhura was saying, listening, social understanding, empathy.
Yeah.
And that's how you become a differentiator. And that's when you understand how to lead others. So for me, even the question you had asked about, how can you then start interacting with the world? I remember even we as coaches, even in journals, we are told that we have to understand the way we show up.
Yeah.
And the showing up, i.e. the way we behave, is how we make people feel. And the way people feel determines how they will be engaged.
Okay.
And the extent to which they're engaged is what then makes that relationship successful, whether it's a relationship to do a task, is a sales performance relationship. It's very important that we then understand people will get engaged to how you make them feel. So we're told first, start with yourself. Yeah. Because we ourselves, how much do I engage with myself? Do I listen to myself? Do I appreciate myself? All these things we're saying, how do I appreciate myself? Because it has to start with me, how I'm feeling. And many of us are very bad to ourselves. Oh, Mary, you're so stupid. Yeah. You could have done better. Exactly. Why did you say that there? The self messages we're giving to ourselves. But if you say, Mary, that was very good. You showed up so well. Hey, you're hot, baby. That encourages me. And then I become more creative. Yeah. And that's how we then engage with others. So really, how we first start with ourselves and we start to understand ourselves and be good to ourselves and show up to ourselves.
Yes.
And then now with others, how do we listen to others? How do we negotiate? How do we make them feel? You remember that famous, is it Maya Angelou? People will never remember how you treated them or what you did. It's how you made them feel, something to that extent. Yes. It is then understanding how do you make people feel? And then how they feel is how they feel engaged, and then how they feel engaged is how they will then be able to show up and be able to do the work that you want them to do and make that relationship successful. That's what I would say.
That's very, very powerful and very, very grounded. Just right back to practical. It's practical life. We're not talking about touchy-feely. This is practical life. This is life manuals. Zuhura's. What can you tell this manager?
The manager.
I've seen projects fail.
I don't want to be.
Sorry, Zuhura. I'm saying I've seen projects fail just because of relationships. $4 million projects fail. I've seen organizations fail. Even now when I'm on board, I'm seeing more and more. It's all got to do with people and feelings and all those things we're talking about. Go ahead, Zuhura. It's never the technical competence.
No, I'm laughing because I'm sure the manager you're talking about who says, this is touchy-feely, I can be, Bristol with my people, I can achieve and whatever. I can say this is a short-term results manager. He does not care about sustainable growth for his business. And I just want to give a very practical example. When you think of the brands in the world which are loved, and people admire them. And these brands continue to grow and grow, they amaze you. Go and see how people are treated. Because a business is protected by loyal customers. It is actually protected by loyal employees. If you are a short-term results manager, yes, you'll get them. But human beings, we have this particular tendency. We are just like when you are listening to your refrigerator, we have a thermostat. There is a point where you reach, it is a threshold. You say, I don't care how much money I'm getting.
Yeah.
I have had enough.
Yes.
And then you have hemorrhage of talent. And from human resource point of view, the moment you have high turnover, your productivity, your profitability is affected.
Yeah.
And you bring new people. This particular manager who is talking about touchy-feely, continue his Bristol way of handling people, then these people also leave the organization. So I say, if you have achieved, but you have left so much blood on the floor, that would be a very short-term achievement.
Yeah.
It won't take you anywhere. So if we really want as leaders to build sustainable growth in our businesses, you can never say these essential skills are touchy-feely, they are not for me. I train military people, the Tanzania Police Force of Tanzania, officers, regional police commanders in emotional intelligence. And I normally tell some other classes, military is the best in terms of applying emotional intelligence. Because if you are a general and you have your platoon and you are ordering them to go to war, you look in their faces, you know they are going to die. Some of them, they won't come back. But have you seen them when they are given orders to go? They go singing because they know how to inspire. Yeah, they know how to inspire.
Yeah.
So we are not talking about kids' gloves, handling people with kids' gloves. No, it's about being firm in a very respectful manner. And that's why we have the question of a good boss and a bad boss.
Yes.
Where you say the good boss is firm, is assertive, but treat you in a way that does not undermine you, does not abuse you. Then you go, you give your extra, you give your discretionary effort to achieve.
Yeah.
So it is not technical. It is about how we make other people feel. And that's why we go back to Maya Angelou saying, it is not you say, it is not what you say, it is not what you did, it is how you made me feel, which will keep me engaged and keep me following you. I'm ready to take a bullet on your behalf because of how you make me feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually hear you. It's such a short-term approach. And even looking at the world leaders that we look up to, I mean, a lot can be said about how we view them in terms of how they treat people fairly, the way they're able to connect with humanity. So I think, as you said, if you want a longer term, and I think most of the people who actually make it and to the top, there's a consistent development into other people or ways of being able to tap into other people. And I think for such, from hearing from what you said, then we must be saying that the managers who find themselves plateauing and don't know what the reason is, maybe they should be asking themselves what impact they're leaving.
Absolutely. I mean, we have polls, Gallup polls, others. You ask an HR manager, they'll tell you that the average productivity in companies, average is about 30%, 28.9, 29.2. Average productivity in an organization is about 30%. So if you go to senior management and some of the top bosses, it could be even 60%. If it's the owner or somebody who's there throughout, is 80%. But on average, people are working, they're having tea, they're talking, how are you, how was the weekend? They're on Facebook, like we are now, Facebook Live, hi. And we are on so many, and we are quarreling, we are just generally discussing, shooting the breeze, engaging, which now we are not getting actually from this working from home. All those things that matter us, we have our own friendships and so on. Yeah. You find that to raise the managers who perform very well, and that's why I was talking about productivity, the really successful managers or the successful sales reps or the successful, you can see their output, are those who actually understand about engaging. And how then do you get that productivity up? It's through engagement. Because like we say, the way you show up, the way you talk to people and show up and behave, that's what we mean by showing up, determines then the way people feel. The way people feel determines how much the extent to which they're engaged. The extent to which they're engaged then determines everything about that relationship. So if they feel fully engaged, I love this boss, yes, let's work over. I mean, just think about the best boss you had or you've ever had and the worst boss you've had. What were the things, you know, how did that boss make you feel?
Yeah, I can tell you a few things.
How did they make you feel? Are they open and honest about mistakes? And if you just, we ask you a few questions about, you know, what was their mood? Did they look like they were in charge of their emotions and their moods? How did they make you feel? Were they open and honest? Did they make ethical decisions? Did they manage their emotions effectively in very difficult situations? Or did you say, hey, yule boss, leo, kuko aje boss namna gani leo? You know, because they know, leo, usiende uko, even the secretary tells you, please do not go near that office. Emotion, leo, siju walipigana nyumbani. So people want to know you. So, and did he recognize you and, you know, did he recognize you, give you achievements, praise you even in front of everybody? Those things, a good boss, once he does that, you find yourself, it's not even money. You work because you feel it. But those people who, like for me, micromanage me, would not even praise me, they make me feel stupid. In this job I was telling you, I used to feel, do I really have a degree? I don't even think I know how to write English. I remember writing a letter 10 times, 11, 12. By that time I gave up. I actually put it in a drawer. He kept changing the English. Till I said, is it me or is it him? Honestly, a letter, simple letter. It had been done by somebody in another country. We were told write like this. But I used to feel stupid. And my self-confidence was like this. Exactly. And therefore, I was working for the salary. By the end, I was saying, wacha nifanye kazi niende nyumbani.
And by the way, people can make you feel stupid. Like your key is zero, and you show up somewhere, you know you're a brilliant person and you're capable. By the time you're done, you're questioning yourself, you're questioning your abilities, you're even questioning, even start questioning how you are brought up, what is wrong with me. One person.
One. Honestly, that person, I still remember them. Even when we were told, play this game, best boss, worst boss, I still remember. I just say like, surely. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is important also to realize that when we encounter such situations, I mean, how do we influence it, thinking about this to achieve our outcome? So now that I think we are almost done with the time we're allocated to this webinar, and I think we've more or less answered any questions that are on the chat. Any last words? And I will start with you, Zuhura, that you can share.
Vicky, I have also learned a lot from this webinar and also the questions that we have received from our audience. What I just want to say is my last parting words is like, human beings, we are very lucky because we are wired in a way that we can bring the best out of ourselves if we want to, and if we are intentional and we are conscious of what is happening. Also, we can be in control, especially when people who surround us bring out the worst of them, because human beings, we have two wolves which reside inside us. You have one wolf which is good, and if we feed this particular wolf, we'll become stronger. And we have another wolf which is a bad wolf, and if you feed it, it becomes stronger. So make sure that all the time, how you are running your life, your attitude, how you see the world, try as much as possible to feed the good wolf, because this will be reflected in your body language. This will be reflected on the choice of words that you use. This will be reflected in how you approach situations that are delicate, and also what you choose, how to come out of those situations. The peril of humanity is our inability to really manage our internal compass, being able to tell which is our north and which is our south, which is our east and which is our west. And the moment you have your internal compass deranged, then your relationship with yourself is affected, your relationship with the world is also affected. And that becomes really a problem. You'll have a painful life. And this is all coming from your neuroscience.
Yeah.
How the brain can become your hijacker. And we have to be mindful how we are controlling it. Thank you, Vicky.
Wow. Yeah, I think what I've had you say right there is actually that even the whole concept of talking to ourselves comes from neuroscience of emotions. Yeah, as in giving yourself that pep talk, you know what, you're good today. Or even just waking up in the morning and deciding, you know what, I'm not feeling so good today, so I'm going to put on my best suit, I'm going to put on my best shoe, and just give myself that thing that I need to overcome that edge that I require. Over to you, Mary. What last words do you have for us today?
Zuhura always challenges me. Today she has now come even with the wolf. I love her example. So again, please put me on a video again, webinar with Zuhura. I learn from her all the time. I mean, as wise. So let me see if I can also have one to match, which I had actually thought about, and I actually listened to it from Derek on the video that I was telling you I was watching of Genos, and he's got wonderful videos. You know, and maybe I'll ask everybody who's listening, all the people listening, is that, do you know someone who, when they walk into a room, they suck the energy and positivity out of the room?
Yeah, definitely.
People like that. And Derek says he had an old boss who used to call it a psychic vampire. You know, people who just come and then asking you also, do you know someone who is the exact opposite, who when they walk into a room, things just seem a bit better. They make you smile, it becomes a bit warmer. And just people, no, don't go, please stay, you know? So this is called emotional contagion, you know? Yeah. It comes from those emotions you're giving out. So perhaps a challenge I would give to us and all of us. I hope you're not the person you walk into a room and people go, whoop. The room goes silent. Or are you a room people smile? Particularly those who are leaders. I always say in leadership, are you the boss who sits down and everybody's just coming to ask you questions? Or do you come in like when my dad used to bring us up, we used to hear the car and everybody would go, TV off, people to their bedrooms, they pretend they've been reading a book. You know, those old, I'm older guys, so all those parents used to just be, he comes in maneno, he's shouting, what did you do? So let's be able to tell ourselves that we can become positive emotional contingents, not negative. That's my last word to challenge everybody, and to learn about the emotional, you know, the science, the neuroscience of the emotional brain and what happens.
Gosh, wow, thank you. I have also learned so much. And as usual, I have laughed so much. And I'm just thinking, we haven't had a very scientific webinar in a while that seems so every other day. And it's been, thank you so much, Mary, for sharing and for sharing deeply as well. And thank you so much, Zuhura, for also being able to share. You know, Zuhura uses animals, but today she decided she's not going to use any animal. For me, my biggest takeaway from this webinar is look at the man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror. Yeah, look at the man in the mirror, look at the woman in the mirror, and ask yourself, yes, what's your emotional contagion? And also as well, start understanding and looking at yourself in terms of how have you been reacting? And I think I like saying, if you change the way you look at the world, you will change your world. And I think if we all start doing that, we will create more emotionally intelligent workplaces. So I'll take a moment to thank everyone who came through to this webinar. We don't take it for granted, the time that you give to us. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your insights in the chat as well, and all the questions and the sharing that we've seen. You've made this session very, very interesting. We shall be in touch with the next webinar, which will be happening possibly in the next 2 weeks, and also give you the topic that we are. Should you want to learn more about emotional intelligence, you can reach out to either Mary or Zuhura or myself, Vicky, and we can take you through a guided tour of how to develop more emotionally intelligent people, leaders, managers, and cultures. Thank you very much, Mary. Thank you very much, Zuhura, and thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening and a weekend too.